It's that time of the week again. Come one, come all. Get your Final Fantasy XIV hot takes here, people. Okay, look, before we dive into this, some of these may not necessarily be hot takes, but I use this series as an excuse to talk about a bunch of different topics, so we're gonna roll with it. Remember, it's all for fun, and let's get right on into it. Hello, everybody. I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and we're going to start with @the Good Captain, who, in reply to the last video where one of the hot takes was that Lamat should die, they said, can we also have Alphino join Wook in the Void of Hell? I hate that little grub. And look, that's a dagger through my heart, and someone's twisting it and throwing salt in the wound, and I just bit my tongue even saying this. Look, I get some people don't like the twins, but I like them. They're pretty much our left and right hand, and while I don't think they were handled that particularly well in Dawntrail, I'll never forget all the good times we had and shared in the previous expansions. Like back in Heaven's Ward or, Shadowbringers, or those final moments in Endwalker. I like Alphino, yeah? I'll be an Alphino defender until the day I'm gone. And if they ever do kill either of the twins, let's be fair here, I'll go full villain arc. I'm burning the world. Elden Ring, Frenzied Flame. Yeah, that would be the fate of Eorzea if either of these twins die under my watch. It ain't happening. Does Alphino maybe need a bit of a trading arc because that dude being a quote-unquote healer in Trust Dungeons feels like it's false advertisement sometimes? Yeah, sure. Send him off somewhere. Let him train up a bit. Get some gains in him. Give him some protein. Buff him up a bit. Send it back when he actually knows how to press his healing buttons. We can have this argument, we can have this debate all we want. I'm just saying. I'll bring Meteon back. Full Endsinger type crap. If anything happens to either one of them, we'll make a TikTok edit out of it. I guess this video is a bit of a theme with characters dying, so we're gonna transition immediately into our second take from @Kumiko026, who says, I keep having a feeling that Kona will die. It kinda shocked me he didn't in the main story, but he seems like a character Square Enix will probably kill off at some point. It wouldn't really surprise me. I don't know if Dawntrail necessarily has that type of vibe that either the character of Lamat or Kona would necessarily be in danger of dying, but even when playing through the base version of Dawntrail's MSQ, I was of the opinion that there is an interesting story to tell if you kill one of these characters off and how the other sibling will react to that. I highly doubt they'll actually kill off Lamat because, well, duh. But I could see Kona dying, and that if Kona dies, that could be used as a way to garner a visceral reaction from a lot of people to get us motivated to take down whoever the 7.3 villain will end up being. I think there's a way to make it work. If you ask me, I would say probably a 75 to 85% chance that Kona lives, but if he did end up dying somehow, it wouldn't really blow me away or surprise me in terms of, oh, it came out of nowhere. He's a character where it kind of feels as if his whole character arc is largely wrapped up, especially with 7.1, and say what you will about the overall execution of it, but that story arc does feel pretty much over. So if there was a time to kill this character, 7.2 would be a good time to do it as a cliffhanger going into 7.3 with the big climactic finale. Seeing as a lot of the takes in this video are focused on the story itself, let's take a little bit of a breather and talk about the gameplay side of things. We have @Daimaza, who says, my Final Fantasy XIV hot take is that Dawntrail should have been more gameplay focused instead of having a big MSQ like the other expansions. Focused on adding more new gameplay stuff and improving old stuff. Devs sold Dawntrail as some sort of vacation, but the slog of the MSQ made it feel anything but that. People joke that Estinian essentially got the vacation that we wanted, but it's kinda true. He got the fun stuff while we essentially was stuck with babysitting duties, and yeah, hindsight's 2020 in this regard, I do think they had a unique opportunity when it came to Dawntrail to really mix things up and possibly dive into the gameplay side of things and mix up the formula of what is a post-Heidelin Zodiac arc MSQ. What does that look like? How does it function? How does it operate? I think to some degree, they experimented with what felt like, to me at least, more of these one-on-one fights, and I quite enjoyed them. I would have liked even more of them, but yeah, Final Fantasy XIV has always kind of suffered from the go talk to this NPC, then go talk to this NPC, then kill one ad, then go talk to this NPC, then this NPC, then this NPC, and it can feel like a cutscene simulator, and when the cutscenes are really good, and they're piping hot, and they're juicy, and they're lovely, yeah, those moments just absolutely fly by you because of how high quality the story can be. But when the story, at least for a lot of us, underdelivers or is just underwhelming, it can make that lack of gameplay feel far more noticeable. And I would love to see Final Fantasy XIV really embrace gameplay scenarios in the MSQ. It does it on occasion, but I would love to see them do it far more often. I'm not saying you need to have like a bunch of go kill 10 quests, go collect 5 bare butt quests, and stuff like that. I'm not saying you need to do stuff like that, but more of these gameplay scenarios that Dawntrail and Endwalker even had, and iterate on them. Sure, you may not have nailed it the first time, but I don't think that's a reason to necessarily throw the concept out wholesale. It is a video game at the end of the day, and the story should properly make use of the fact that it is a video game. Though there's also an element that people just like different things, and there are some people that just like this style of, well, storytelling. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I quite enjoyed when the story is really good, but I just think it can be bolstered and uplifted even more if you have great gameplay scenarios to back up all this great storytelling. And I've talked about before the whole, like, vacation vibe they wanted Dawntrail to have. I think the reason it felt like babysitting duties for Lamat and stuff like that is because the MSQ was too structured. In terms of, oh, we have to go on this trial succession, we have to go collect all these magic starbursts. If you just had, and I talked about this before, if you just had the overall objective be go find the City of Gold, and we had to just go out in the world and like scavenge various clues together, go on different expeditions, hunting down the narrowest and faintest of rumors, and trying to build up something from that, I think that could have been, well, way better. It's a term that arguably gets thrown around a little too much, but I do think Dawntrail should have had far more of a focus on getting the feeling of an Indiana Jones adventure in the confines of Final Fantasy XIV. And I'll always say that one expert level dungeon that takes place in Shaloni with the Great Serpent, the vibe I had experiencing that dungeon for the first time is the vibe that I wish Dawntrail had throughout its entirety. Bit of a shame they missed the mark, at least for me in that regard. But like I've talked about before, I'm still relatively optimistic for the future. But either way, I definitely mostly agree with this take. I think Final Fantasy XIV needs to find ways to incorporate gameplay more frequently throughout its story experience. That is like its biggest weakness historically for me, but also recently. Because I think it's especially showcased that when they do have these gameplay moments and scenarios, I genuinely love them. Like those 1v1 fights against Galul Jaja, or even Bakul Jaja. Like when they let us actually play the game in the MSQ, it's really dang good. The dungeon design throughout Dawntrail has been really dang good. The fight design really dang good. Make use of that, embrace it. Don't just give in to tradition and what has come before. Experiment, branch out, and try new things and incorporate this really fun design and gameplay that they do have and are capable of producing, incorporated more often throughout the MSQ. That's what I would love to see in the future. Next take comes from, well, I don't know how to pronounce this, but at G4B5, nailed it, who says, Wook has the greatest opportunity to become a villain. I hated 7.0 and 7.1, but from another perspective, it can be used to tell the story of the fall of a hero. Personally speaking, I don't think this is what they're going to do. I also think it's too late to pull the trigger on that style of a story. I think if you are going to have Wook Lamat have a heel turn and become a villain, it would have been after Zoralja killed off Galul Jaja. That would have been the moment to do it. Have her give in to her grief, have her doubt everything about her character and her beliefs up to that point in time, become obsessed with vengeance and give in to anger and go after Zoralja, maybe tease it and have it be a bit of a long game, but in that climactic battle against Zoralja, have her become a full villain at that point, not caring about the people of Solution 9, simply wanting her revenge. I think that would have been the way to do it. I think it's too late to go for that right now, and it would feel far too reactionary, in my opinion, to the overall sentiment from the community. I think it would feel as if it came out of nowhere considering the story that we have have with 7.1. I'm not saying they couldn't pull it off with whatever story they have to come. It's a possibility, and maybe they do it way into the future as well. I just don't think it's necessarily realistic. Could it be interesting, though? I think it could. But, like, at this point, is the story that anyone wants? Is it really Lamat having to learn the lessons she just learned all over again? Because that's essentially what that story would amount to, because there's no way in hell they keep her as a permanent villain. The balls they would have, though, to do that. I would be on board just to see whatever they could cook up. That could be extremely interesting. I just significantly doubt that's the path they're gonna go down here. But I am, like, morbidly curious. For the final take of the video, we have at Nebula8851, who says, here's an actual hot take. There's nothing inherently wrong with her character, Lamat, but that the trope she embodies, shonen protagonist, isn't very popular with non-anime fans. I agree and I disagree at the same time. I agree that she is just a typical shonen protagonist that is kind of dumb and silly, and uses the power of yapping about friendship and understanding to ultimately win the day and get some power up out of seemingly nowhere. That's a standard character archetype, and if you're familiar with stories like this, you've seen them a bunch before. That's also where my issue with Lamat lies, because I have seen that character before. And while, yeah, that's kind of the vibe Dawntrail had, it's not the vibe Final Fantasy XIV necessarily has had up to this point in time. So when you insert a character like a shonen protagonist into it, it feels a little bit off and out of place. Now, it's not like Final Fantasy XIV hasn't had tropes before, right? But it hasn't leaned as much into standard, typical shonen tropes like Dawntrail has up to this point in time, at least to my recollection. And I can excuse a shonen protagonist within the confines of a shonen anime or manga, because that's what I'm expecting out of that type of media. And also, that character is surrounded and juxtaposed by other characters that embody other shonen tropes, so there isn't this feeling of detachment that I have with Lamat in Dawntrail. Because in a typical shonen, yeah, she would, like, fit in like a glove, and she wouldn't really be out of place. It's just the fact that this is Final Fantasy XIV that hasn't had these tropes to this extent and to this degree with this overall tone that makes this feel so weird and just out of place. And yeah, absolutely, with non-anime fans, they will still find this probably off-putting. It's like, I think a good analogy here would be a food analogy. Imagine you had this incredible S-tier steak. Absolutely divine, and you love this steak, and you get it from this one spot all the time, and maybe, on this occasion, it doesn't come out to the quality you normally expect it to. Crap happens, that's fine, we can move on from it. But, in addition to the steak just being kind of lower quality and not cooked as well as you are accustomed to it normally being, they just drizzle this giant caramel sauce all over it. And it's like, is there anything wrong with caramel sauce? Absolutely not. It's a delicious sauce. Just not something that I would want out of a steak and the meal that I have that steak with. Nothing wrong with it by itself, it's just out of place. And there's far, far too much of it to where I'm no longer feeling as if I'm eating a steak meal, I feel like I'm eating caramel with a side of steak. And look, maybe there's some people out there with a craving where they're just like, I'm absolutely devouring that, no questions asked, I'm going to go full Kirby on it, right? Nothing wrong with that, you like what you like. I'm just saying, ordinarily, I don't want caramel sauce with my steak. Because when you actually analyze the character of Lamat and the journey she went on during the course of Dawntrail, it is very much just that shonen protagonist arc. Big and idealistic, has a couple of villains over the course of time that they may or may not ally with, and convince with their own ideals. Talk about your ideals regularly and frequently, and then with the power of friendship overcome the odds at the end of it all. It's a very standard trope, because it's a very standard character. And I think Final Fantasy XIV, by nature of it being a MMORPG, and by nature of it being a Final Fantasy game, you have this Venn diagram of people that either like anime, or people that just want to play a really good MMORPG. And they may have gravitated to the story of Final Fantasy XIV for whatever reason, but people are just people, they like different things. And when you expose someone to a type of trope, but outside of the environment where that trope really thrives, it can leave, well, not a pleasurable first impression. I think that's what happened here a bit with Lamat, alongside all the other issues that I've talked about since Dawntrail came out. I am very interested to see what they're going to do when it comes to 7.2. Because Lamat largely had her journey, like, it's kind of done. So she could take that mentorship role with Galulja at this point. Probably that's the way they go about it. They've kind of teased that with 7.1, if not having done that a bit. I don't know, we have to wait and see. But with that, I think I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And leave a comment down below with your own hot take about Final Fantasy XIV 7.2, or just Dawntrail overall, or anything. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, hear your perspectives, and hear your hot takes, so that I may react to them in a future video. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye everybody, until we meet again!